For years, the map of artificial intelligence had a clean border. On one side, closed frontier models, the best AI money could buy, locked behind API gates controlled by a handful of companies. On the other side, open-weight models, free to download, free to modify, but always a generation behind. That border just collapsed. In a single week in July 2025, 3 separate laboratories, in China again, and in the United States, released open-weight models that don't just approach the frontier, they sit on it. In at least one case, they define it. Start with the headline nobody expected. Moonshot AI, a Beijing-based startup, released Kimi K3, a 2.8 trillion parameter mixture of experts model. On LM Arena's front-end code arena, a benchmark where humans judge AI-generated web applications side by side, K3 ranked number 1. Above Claude 4 Sonnet, above GPT 5.6. That's not a cherry-picked internal benchmark. That's a public, head-to-head, blind evaluation, the closest thing AI has to a peer-reviewed taste test. K3 generates working front-end code with visual fidelity and functional completeness that, according to the Arena's ELO ratings, no closed model currently matches. The model uses a sparse activation architecture. Only a fraction of its 2.8 trillion parameters fire for any given query, keeping inference costs manageable. Moonshot released the weights under an open license, meaning any developer can download, fine-tune, and deploy it. 2 days later, Jipu AI released GLM 5.2, 753 billion parameters, a 1 million token context window, and critically, an MIT license, the most permissive in open source. No restrictions on commercial use, no behavioral guardrails baked into the license terms. Why does the context window matter? Because 1 million tokens means you can feed this model roughly 700,000 words in a single prompt. That's the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, twice, with room for instructions. For enterprises doing legal document review, codebase analysis, or long-form research synthesis, this is transformational. On standard reasoning benchmarks, GLM 5.2 trades blows with GPT 4.5 and Claude Opus class models. Its math and coding scores place it firmly in frontier territory, according to results Jipu published alongside the release. Then NVIDIA entered the conversation. Nemotron 3, Super, a 120 billion parameter mixture of experts model, also with a 1 million token context window, purpose-built for agentic workflows. That means tasks where the AI doesn't just answer a question, it plans, executes multi-step operations, calls external tools, and self-corrects. At 120 billion parameters with sparse activation, this model runs efficiently on NVIDIA's own hardware stack. That's not incidental, it's strategic. NVIDIA isn't just selling GPUs anymore, they're shipping the model that makes those GPUs indispensable. Nemotron 3. Super benchmarks competitively with models 3 to 5 times its size on function calling and tool use evaluations, the metrics that matter most for building AI agents that actually work in production. Let's be precise about what closing the gap means, because vague claims help nobody. On coding, K3 leads the most credible public arena. On long context retrieval and reasoning, GLM 5.2 competes at the highest tier. On agentic tool use, Nemotron 3 supermatches or exceeds models from OpenAI and Google in multiple independent evaluations. No single open model dominates every category, but collectively, for virtually any production use case a builder might have, there is now an open weight option that performs at frontier level. That was not true a month ago. Here's the structural shift that matters more than any single model. According to multiple AI trackers, the number of laboratories producing top-tier benchmark scores effectively doubled in a single week. Where the frontier was defined by 3 or 4 organizations 6 months ago, it's now defined by 7 or 8. This is not consolidation. This is diffusion. The knowledge, the training techniques, the architectural innovations required to build frontier AI, they're spreading faster than any single company can maintain a moat. DeepSeek demonstrated this earlier in 2025. This week confirmed it wasn't a fluke. For the engineers and entrepreneurs actually building with these tools, the calculus has fundamentally changed. Open-weight models used to mean accepting worse performance for the benefit of control. You ran them on your own infrastructure, you owned the weights, but you paid a quality tax. That tax is gone. Today, a startup can download K3 and build a code generation product that outperforms anything accessible through OpenAI's API, without per-token charges, without rate limits, without a terms of service change at 2 a.m., destroying their business model overnight. A law firm can deploy GLM 5.2 behind its own firewall, feed it privileged documents, and never worry about data leaving the building. 2 of these 3 models come from Chinese laboratories. That fact will not go unnoticed in Washington. The open release of frontier competitive AI by Chinese firms complicates every existing argument for export controls and compute restrictions. You cannot embargo weights that are already freely downloadable worldwide. This doesn't resolve the complex policy debates around AI safety and national competition, but it does change the facts on the ground. The frontier is no longer a gated community. 3 models, 1 week. The gap between open and closed didn't just narrow. For practical purposes, in multiple critical domains, it disappeared. This changes who gets to build with the best AI. It changes who controls the terms. And it changes the competitive dynamics of an industry that assumed the biggest checkbook would always win. The biggest checkbook still matters. But the week of July 14, 2025, made one thing clear. Open-weight models are no longer the compromise option. They are a frontier choice.